yesterday in Hoover by 3 teams. Gamecocks shut out. Of course, Alabama was shut out. I mean, it was just amazing baseball on yesterday at the Met in Hoover, because I know you're excited about that. Ty getting ready to play this afternoon, 4:30 Central Time. So we're going to get into all of that. Again, greetings, everybody. This is the Miller's Edge. I'm Corey Miller, the pastor of Payne, alongside my partner, my son, Christian Miller, down in the studio, set behind the glass. And we got a lot to get into on today. Of course, we will recap that big-time Bama win 4-0 over Kentucky. We'll talk about a man, Andrew Pinckney. Boy, what a big day for him. We'll get into some of that. Of course, we got Michael Casagrande of AL.com will join us in the second hour. We're going to talk some football. We're going to talk about Nick's kids and all that. Ask Christian about that because he's participating. That was yesterday in Birmingham. But we're going to talk about something that I thought about last night because I was on the podcast, the Bama Standard. And I threw this out there yesterday, and I asked the question, what is that Bama Standard? And if we identify what that is, have they lost it? And can they get it back? And we'll talk about that. And of course, we want to take your phone calls as it pertains to that as well. 205-342-9904. Appreciate you listening. Don't forget to download that app, 100.9. Get that app, get on your cell phone, your smart pad. You listen to it while you're driving to lunch or sitting at lunch on the golf course. Fall right. Whatever you're doing, tune us in. Christian, what's happening, man?
Nothing much. Just another day, another dollar. And, man, a lot of stuff to unpack today. Really excited about the trajectory of Alabama baseball right now. Looked really good watching that game yesterday. And really eager for this one coming up this afternoon. I know we need to recap that one first, but a tough matchup this afternoon against 1 seed Florida. And like you mentioned, Michael Casagrande will be joining us next and help unpack some of that with the Alabama baseball team. But yeah, there's some really exciting stuff going on. Ready to dive into it.
Well, I think yesterday was exciting, baseball on cross because it had the rain delay. You had a lot of things that was like distractions, if you will. South Carolina started off the morning with a big win, put a 9-piece on Georgia. Alabama came back and a 4-0. I mean, Auburn capped it off last night. They scored 10 runs. I mean, listen, they had 3 shutouts, which I think was a record. History was made at the Met on yesterday. So a lot of great baseball was happening despite the weather and the delays. They still got games in, and they're on it right now. South Carolina, last I looked, was trailing LSU at the morning game 2-1. So a good baseball game happening as we speak.
Well,
but let's go back and talk about
now.
Alabama.
I hate to break it to you. LSU is now up 6-1 in the bottom of the 5th against your Gamecocks.
I just got my stuff set up. It was just 2-1 like 5 minutes ago. Just dropped Carolina's shortstop. Just dropped one, and looks like it might get a little ugly here. Yeah, they still got a few more in it, so
Yeah, there's time. There's time.
Keep hope alive. But anyway, South Carolina's kind of been struggling as of late. They got the big win yesterday. They've had injuries, some pitching situations happening. I mean, they were just scorching the baseball early on in the year. Monty Lee, former head coach of Clemson, came over. South Carolina, things look really, really good. But again, injuries and some other things happen. So they're battling for a regional host as well. So let's talk about Alabama, though, because we're talking about the opposite of South Carolina. It's the Alabama Crimson Tide. 9 wins out of the last 11. 9 wins, folks, out of the last 11. You're talking about a team that we talked about distractions on yesterday, where Brad Bohannon was fired because of that whole gambling scandal. They got to go with an interim coach in Jackson. I mean, this team has found a way to use it as momentum, to turn things around, to use it as fire. And they go in to Hoover at the Met yesterday, and they play some serious baseball. I mean, the pitching was phenomenal. And I mentioned in the opening, Andrew Pinckney. I mean, a 2-run homer, a double Christian, a great sliding catch in the outfield. And by the way, you want to try to get home on him? Let me tell you something. God, we're going to just throw you out. I mean, a laser on a rope. I mean, the dude is, you talking about a complete player? What a phenomenal performance by him.
Yeah, and I think he made himself a lot of money because you know how these games are, these postseason games, all the scouts attend them, right? They attend all the, regular season games, but all eyes are, really on you when it comes down to postseason. And for you to have, such a spectacular day like he had, really proving himself to be a 5-tool player, I think he made himself a lot of money yesterday. Really just doing it all, hitting a homer, hitting the double, that laser to take that run away. I mean, God, man, that probably was the best game of his career. And look, if they want to make a run, they're going to need that type of play. They're going to need guys like him to step up, and he can't be the only one. Other guys are going to have to play well, and luckily they have guys that have potential. I don't know if they have quite that potential, but you got guys like Jim Jarvis, Drew Williamson, some solid hitters, Tommy Seidel, who has been reliable as well. And, they're one of the best hitting teams in the SEC, if not the country. And, I think as long as they can, carry that momentum forward, they have a true shot. And we said this, they look to be a dangerous team. A lot of teams probably don't want to play them. They're hot at the right time. And they do a lot of things well. I really was impressed with Furtado. Jason Jackson came out and said they really just need him to get a couple zeros for him. And he ended up being in there 5 innings and pitched well. Cade Woods came in relief, and then Alton finished things off. So, I really like the way this team looks right now. Again, like I said earlier, I'm excited to see them match up against Florida. It's definitely going to be a tough one, but with their momentum, I think they definitely have a fighting chance. But I'd be curious to hear what Michael thinks. Now, I think a lot of people would agree. I think yesterday's win should at least punch their ticket at hosting the regional, which is very exciting. I don't know if it's necessarily a lock, but I think it's as close to a lock as it could be at this point after yesterday's win over Kentucky. I think they're on the right track. And, there's going to be a lot of questions regarding Jason Jackson. Is it time to seriously consider, retaining him as the next head coach of Alabama baseball? I think what he's done has been remarkable. I think he's shown, from going from the pitching coach to taking over the whole unit that he's capable at least, right? So I think it's time to consider him. And those will be some questions that a lot of people will have answered. I think we might have a caller already. We're going to go to the phone lines real quick. Head over to Philip. Philip, how are you? Welcome into the Miller's Edge. Doing all right this morning?
Hey guys, I appreciate you having me on, and glad you got your show up and running.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Appreciate that.
Oh yeah. The baseball team, that's been a phenomenal story, especially considering that Alabama really needed some good news. Good news, for the athletic department. All that bad stuff happened that, from January on up until, a few weeks ago when Coach Bohannon got in trouble, and then that staffer got in trouble with the charges. And so this is a really, truly feel-good story that the athletic department needed. And it coming from baseball makes it even sweeter because the guys, 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have given you hardly anything to have seen this type of a turnaround. So it's a true credit to those players and staff to get refocused and rejuvenated because they've certainly done it.
Absolutely. And we talked to Keith Holcomb, former Alabama baseball and football player, and then we asked him, and he said, yeah, that would be tough, fighting those distractions with everything going on regarding head coach Brad Bohannon being fired with the gambling allegations. But I agree 100%, Philip. You got to tip your hat to these guys. The way they stayed focused, they fought for each other, the guys in that locker room, and we've heard them, they said it at their post-game interview that it's business as usual. You have to tune out the distractions and play for the guy next to you. And I think that's the perfect approach and the perfect way to handle those things. And I applaud them for handling it the way that they did.
Right. Well, we'll see what happens with the coaching search. I think that Coach Jackson is definitely in the running. He's shown that the guys are rallying behind him, and there's something to be said for that because I think they are rallying behind him, and he's brought something to them that they desperately needed, and it's paying off. And I wish him the best of luck against Florida. That's going to be very interesting, and I think right now, Alabama's a dangerous team.
They're really dangerous. And we're talking about the pitching. They're really solid. They've been hitting the baseball very well. pretty much all season long. I heard Coach Jackson yesterday talk about that. They had some good outings and just let some games slip away, but they played solid for the most part. And in baseball, as you well know, that you want to catch fire at the right time, and they look like that hot team that's got it all together, that's determined. Despite all the distractions, they're very focused. As Pinckney said yesterday, it's pitch by pitch, inning by inning. It's the way it works, and you just got to just let it happen and unfold. And I think this is a team that can make some noise. They got the pitching, they got the hitting, they got the defense behind the pitching. So they got the recipe for a really good run in this SEC tournament, also in regional and hopefully super regionals on the way to Omaha. So this is a team I enjoy watching and really excited about what the future holds for them. Appreciate your phone call, man. Have a great, wonderful Wednesday.
Yeah.
We love talking to the people. We love talking to the people. 205-342-9904. And Christian, he's talking about Coach Jackson when you're talking about replacing, the coach. His biggest advocate, he got the best resume, right? Because he had to take over a disgruntled situation, a team that has all this fire going on. He was able to settle things down and keep them focused. And by the way, they're playing much better baseball. So, if you Greg Burns, you talk about hiring a coach, and he's going to have players that are going to be advocates for him. This is like the perfect storm, I think. And what better coach can you have and have on display to see what he can do under pressure? Things is ugly. He handled it very well. He got his guys continue to keep them motivated. I think he has the best opportunity to step in and take that interim tag off his name.
I agree. When he stepped in, they took on the series against Vanderbilt, ended up winning that series 2-1. That was his first series. They followed that with a win against Troy. They went on the road to Texas A&M, won that series, with some big wins, 12-1 and 11-0. Swept Ole Miss, former national champions. Definitely. And I think the argument would be some of the teams that they did face after he took over weren't necessarily the best teams, right? But I don't think you necessarily look at it that way. I think you look at it as, hey, the Vanderbilt series was huge. In those other two series, they might not necessarily been the best teams, but those were convincing wins. And we always talk about this with football, and it really applies to any sport. Teams typically take on the persona of their coaches. And I think your ability to lead your team and to get them to rally behind you is critical. And I think that's something important to look at. And I think his ability to do that has been very remarkable. And I definitely think you got to seriously consider. I know some people say, hey, well, it did not normally work out when you do that. But look, his resume is proven to be strong right now. And obviously they're going to look at other candidates from around the country, and rightfully so. Greg Byrne is phenomenal at what he does. I think he's the best AD in the country. The way, he operates and is able to go out and get the right fit for these jobs and get people of high character and people that really fit Alabama's persona. I think he'll get the right person for the job, but I definitely think you have to take Jason Jackson very seriously with his work that he's done in this short period of time. But like I said, I'm really excited about this team. And again, you got to realize they're led by seniors, which definitely helps you out in postseason play. We know that veterans and experience always is a huge advantage. So I think they have a lot of things working in their favor right now.
Real quickly, the guy that makes it very easy, or I should say much easier, for Coach Jackson is Andrew Pinckney. Let's listen to this throw in this home run. This is the sounds of the game from the big win over Kentucky yesterday.
I think we might end up getting to that in a second. Well, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come out of break with that audio, and we're going to welcome Michael Casagrande. With AL.com coming up shortly. Next here on the Miller's Edge, we'll be right back after a short break.
Trying to find Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partially sunny this afternoon. The high today 81. Tonight fair with the low at 59. Tomorrow is sunny day. The high 84. Friday partly to mostly sunny. Just a few isolated showers around. The high Friday at 83. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
thinking as you're seeing him tag? I would assume you're expecting him to, because it's a deep enough ball and you're running under it to make that play. Just take us through the mindset.
Yeah, it's a tie game, 1 out, so the opportunity's there, and I'm just hoping that the ball hits me in the air, really. So I think I can put it on the money pretty much every time. So it came up to me, and I just tried to get behind it and come through it and get it to him in the air, and he made a good tag. So
on a day when the ball's not even carrying, that at bat, were you 0-2? 0-2 in that at bat, I think? What was the count?
I think I might have been 1-0. I'm not sure.
1-0, whatever it was. What's your approach right there? I mean, are you looking off speed, reacting fastball, or how's that work?
Yeah, the first at-bat, I think I was a little jumpy. I think I was a little antsy going into the first at-bat, and I was making some early decisions and kind of pulling my head out. So I just wanted to really stay through it and try and line out to the second baseman. And elevated it, and it kept going.
So and then moving into the double, so you eliminate the other way because you've already hit the ball the other way, and now you start attacking the middle end. Is that how it works?
No, I'm still just trying to line out to the second baseman.
And you just react inside.
Yeah, I'm just trying to 2 strikes, and it's just protect the plate and get a barrel on something. And
I love it.
Yeah. Interim head coach.
Big afternoon. Excuse me, I can't even talk here. For another minute, Kentucky on yesterday. I'm reading something and trying to talk at the same time. Corey Miller, Christian Miller, the Miller's Edge here. Let's go to the hotline, the guest line. Michael Casagrande. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Is it Casa, or am I saying it right, or am I wrong on that? But AL.com, senior sports reporter, of course, covers the baseball team and all of Alabama sports. Welcome into the Miller's Edge.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going great.
Really good, if I can just talk right now.
I understand.
I'm trying to do 2 things at once, and I'm like, all right, that don't work. Let me focus here. But welcome, man. Things are going well. Talk about this great win on yesterday, Alabama over Kentucky. A shutout, and, of course, a team that everybody's talking about now that can make some big noise going forward.
Yeah, no, it was an impressive win and another impressive pitching performance for a team that's very ridden that pitching staff the last few weeks. Bats came alive at the same time, at the right time. Andrew Pickney continues to be, one of the hottest players in the SEC. So they really kind of put it together at the right time.
Absolutely, Michael. I appreciate you joining us. We go way back, covering me when I was playing here. My question to you is, do you feel after yesterday's performance against Kentucky, would you go ahead and say that Alabama has secured themselves as a host for a regional?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discussion about that still, and I think talking to some people, I think there might be a little bit more work to do to fully secure that and to assure themselves of that. But I think they're definitely in a discussion. There are a lot of SEC teams that are in contention, and you wonder how many one league teams will make it into, we'll get a regional host. So it'll be an interesting debate. I'm sure it could come right down to that selection day before they find out anything. But I think it'll be interesting, and I think they've made their case. I think other teams have a good case as well, so it's going to be interesting.
Mike, 2 of the hottest teams are in the state of Alabama, right? Auburn and the University of Alabama, both are playing extremely great baseball right now. But again, I'm really hyped up how this team has performed with the distractions. I mean, but they've played well even before the whole coaching situation happened. But when you look at this baseball team, what are some of the things you've been hearing about how they've been able to rally and come together and continue to have great focus?
Yeah, that was something that Jason Jackson, the interim coach, last night talked about. Threw it in my story. It's a quick quote, but he noted that sometimes stuff like this helps focus a team. It'll bring everything in. It'll bring things together, simplify things in a sense, that there's just been a different kind of mindset. And you could tell from the day that they fired Brad Bohannon and they come out and almost run rule a top 5 Vanderbilt team that night, just hours later. So it can be a rallying cry. It can, launch that momentum when people are counting you out, myself included. I wrote that day, an analysis that pretty much maybe left that team, that program for dead, that they had been struggling for a long time, and this is only going to push them deeper into a hole. And I think they've responded, at least in the short term, very well.
Our guest is Michael Casagrande of AL.com. Michael, would you say, speaking of Jason Jackson, that it's time to seriously consider him as the next head coach of Alabama baseball?
Yeah, I certainly believe that he's going to be a top candidate, if not the top candidate at this point. He's really navigated this pretty well. I know there are some names out there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was at the top of the list at this point, at least.
Oh, you got to think that, as I said earlier, the players obviously going to be maybe his biggest advocates, right? Because they kind of grown to like him. They've seen him handle this situation with great poise and kind of pushed him to continue to play hard and keep their focus. So I think, if you're Greg Burns, you go, wow, this is a great resume already. I've seen it in action. And I think that may lead him to really, as you said, be the front runner and get this job. But going forward this afternoon, they take on a team in Florida who's coming with the number 1 ranking in the tournament, a team that has championship pedigree, a team that understands playing in big games. So when you look at this matchup, what do you expect and how do you see this baseball team of Alabama coming back this afternoon?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see the pitching matchup. Who does Alabama throw out there? They put their top guys, it was a bullpen game for the Kentucky game yesterday. I'm curious to see who they pitch to see the level of importance they're putting on this game, getting this win. Because oftentimes with this SEC tournament, of course, you want to win it all. You want to win the championship, but there are smaller battles to be won within. Getting to a win over Florida today would be bigger than a lot of other things, all things considered. So for the resume, that would be huge. I mean, beating Kentucky yesterday was big in terms of being the number 2 team in the RPI. So it's all about building that resume, and I think a win over Florida could all but assure them of that regional host.
Michael, do you feel that after everything you've seen, this team do this season and this postseason up to this point, is this a team that you feel has the potential to make a run at an NCAA title? I know we got to be where our feet are on folks on the SEC tourney right now, but do you see them having the potential to make a run at the NCAA title and punching a ticket to Omaha?
Maybe in the past I wouldn't have said yes, but after you've seen, like an Ole Miss a year ago, the last team to make it into the last at-large team to make it into the tournament at all last year, to go on and win it all. So, there's something to be said about getting hot. They've got some of the pieces that you'd need. I think it's just given the history and the recent history of postseason struggles with this program, it might be hard to fully visualize a run to Omaha. But it's like I said, with Ole Miss, what they did last year you couldn't have convinced a lot of people at this point, Wednesday at the SEC tournament, that they would be the one hosting the trophy in Omaha. So anything's possible, but would be on the outside shot, but not impossible.
Michael Casagrande, senior sports writer, Vail.com, is our guest here on the Miller's Edge. I wanted to switch gears and just talk a little Alabama football. I mean, we're football guys at heart, but I know the baseball is kind of thing right now. But Nick's kids happened on yesterday. Of course, Nick, coming from Europe or Italy, he's been around doing his vacation, his travels, and talking about the brand of Alabama and people over there loving the brand, and but he's asked some questions about his team on yesterday. When you look at this football team, a lot of jobs are open. I think this is one of the years that you look at Alabama football and you go, wow, there's a lot of jobs that's up for competition. Just kind of what is your early thoughts of this football team as they head to come back to campus and start the summer workouts?
I think it's really an interesting group. Very much a program, team in transition with 2 new coordinators, obviously a new quarterback still to be determined, and just a lot of question marks. I keep saying in every conversation I have, who's the dude? Who's going to be the dude on this team? Or dudes, plural, where Will Anderson, Bryce Young were the unquestioned guys from last year's team. And when you look at this year's team, I don't see that tallest guy standing up as being, who's going to be that person. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop as a team behind the scenes, it's, you guys know that this is a big time of year, the summer. How they come together as a team when no one's watching, I think is an important step in this whole process. So those kind of situations are happening now. But is this going to be a running style of offense? Are they going to? We've seen so much passing in the last several quarterbacks. Is this going to be a return to a ground game with some strong young running backs coming into the program? I think there's just a whole lot more question marks than I can remember in recent past. Should make for an season, one way or the other.
I agree 100% with you, Michael. I want to get your thoughts, and I know you're sick and tired of the quarterback question, so I'm not going to ask you who's going to be the quarterback, but do you think there's a front runner right now, and who do you think has the best chances out of all these guys? Because it's a pretty loaded quarterback room at this point. I think 5 scholarship guys with the addition of Tyler Buchner transfer from Notre Dame. Who do you think has the best odds to landing the job? And does it really matter? I think if we look back, earlier in Coach Saban's tenure, and definitely some good quarterbacks, but they, respectfully weren't on the level of what we see in now, with Tua and Jalen and Mac Jones. Do you think it really matters if it's Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson or Tyler Buchner? And if so, who do you think is that front runner or has the best chance?
It's a good point and a good question. I think it somewhat, in the sense, it reminds me of the 2016 season.
Yep.
Coming off of Jake Coker, you had a number of quarterbacks in the room, and you weren't quite sure who was going to rise to the top. And Jalen Hurts obviously won the job eventually, but I think there was a lot of, that whole off season, you were hearing something about this guy, something about that guy. This is going to be the starter. This is going to be the starter. And Jalen kind of quietly worked his way through. He had a big A-Day. He kind of gave a little bit of a preview of what was to come, but I don't know if anyone truly believed that a true freshman would be the starter from that group. And obviously time has proved that one to be a good call. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say because nobody took that bull by the horns, as Saban nice to say it, on A-Day. I know it's a dialed back offense, but you just saw things that you're maybe hoping to see some improvement in certain areas, and there were certain fundamentals that still weren't there from the guys who were coming back. And then you had Buchner in, and he came from Notre Dame, was probably going to lose the starting job there, to Sam Hartman, who was transferring in. He had some turnover issues. He could run the ball. He kind of has some of the Jalen Milroe style of he can run the ball well. Has some turnover issues. So, it's when you bring in, and they've never brought in a transfer quarterback. So you think, that might be, when you bring in a transfer for the first time at that position, that might be an indicator, but there wasn't something so overwhelming about Buchner that says that, well, he's definitely the guy to beat in this group. So, long story short, it's a good question, and we're going to find out. But I don't know if there's a true, the guy to beat, and then everyone trailing behind him.
Yeah, the transfer guy from Notre Dame, I saw him play in the Gaither Bowl against South Carolina. Interception-prone type of player, but he's kind of like, he take risks, take shots. But to his credit, after being down by a couple of touchdowns to the Gamecocks, he brought Notre Dame back, minus the big tight end and some of his best players at running back. He won the game, but I still don't see him, that guy, like you said, that could come in here and just, you don't put him in front of, Ty Simpson and those guys, Milroe, because I think they're equally as good or probably better, in my opinion. So I don't think that's going to, tell us anything. But I think they'll find a way. Don't you think, Coach Saban, he just finds a way and he sees what he has, through the summer, heading into fall, and they make the necessary adjustments, and he'll figure it out. And that's what I kind of say to the Alabama fans, right? Coach Saban always figured out when you think we don't have this guy or that guy, he figures things out. And somebody normally, separate themselves and take that lead, especially at that quarterback position.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, the running back situation is something to keep an eye on, that we've kind of grown so accustomed to this being a pass-first, high-flying to a Mac Jones, Bryce Young offense. But if they bring it back a little bit to the Jake Coker era, A.J. McCarron era, where there was, run the ball first. You have some Justice Haynes. You got a couple good freshman running backs who were in there that could kind of change that dynamic and change the way people look at the offense back to the way it was in a different era. It could be a possibility where it becomes on the quarterback to not do any harm. Don't turn the ball over. Be looked to be more of a possession player than the guy who's going to go out and win the game for you.
No, I agree 100%, Michael. It's definitely interesting. There's a lot of questions that will be answered eventually, but it's just there's so many different factors. You look at it, and me being a defensive guy, I just always say, defense wins championships. They don't score, they don't win. But then on the flip side, you look at it and you're like, well, things have changed. You almost have to score 40 points a game now to win in college football. We've even heard Coach Saban say that. So as much as I'd like to say, as long as we have a stout and stellar defense, we should be just fine. You look at the landscape of college football, and unfortunately, you have to put up some points in order to win games, and we see that now with the way things have changed. Michael, I appreciate you being so gracious with your time. Before we let you go, tell everybody where they can follow you and follow up on your writing, and where they can follow you out on Twitter.
Yeah, I appreciate it. AL.com is always going to be the home to my work for that, and by Casagrande on Twitter. BYCASAGRANDE. Try to have some fun on there, keep it light. That's where you can find me.
Good deal. Well, appreciate you being gracious. Thank you for being gracious with your time. We'll definitely do it again, Michael, and thanks for joining the Miller's Edge.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Always.
Michael Casagrande, AL.com. Love the insight, baseball, football, all your Bama sports. He got you covered because I'm sitting there reading his article on the baseball team from yesterday when I was trying to talk and do something at the same time. I'm looking at Andrew Pinkney trying to say his name. That's pretty difficult to do. We want to keep it football after the break, though, and I want to hear from you. We're going to line up the phone calls because when we come back, we're going to have about a good 18 minutes or so to take your calls, to talk football or wherever you want to go. 205-342-9904. And here's the question. What is the Bama standard? Part two of that question, did they lose it? And then I'm going to throw in a third part of it. Will they get it back? We're going to talk about that because we're going to talk to Christian. He played for Nick Saban. He knows about the Bama standard. I got my own thoughts of why maybe they lost it. So we're going to get into some of that conversation. Love to hear from you again. 205-342-9904. This is the Miller's Edge on the Tide 100.9, the home of Alabama Crimson Sports.
This is Reagan, owner of R&R Cigars, the Cigar Mansion in downtown Tuscaloosa, located at 2703 6th Street across from the Home 2 Suites. Come down to R&R and see why we're the ultimate cigar and bourbon experience. With over 165 bourbons and 5 private barrels, our selection of bourbon is unmatched. We have the best cocktails around and our cigar selection is legendary. Our lounge and service are world class. Come and experience the luxury of the mansion and see why it's a world-renowned cigar and spirits destination.
You can't just come up here with the expectation that things are going to happen without putting in the work, without going out there and grinding in the off season. Going through you can't go through the motions during the workouts. You got to take everything serious. You got to show up every day to improve and get better. And I think it's just a result of just over time. People becoming satisfied. We've even heard Kirby Smart say that. The biggest thing that they're worried about right now is fighting guys being satisfied, getting comfortable. And because it's easy to do when you have success, especially when you're a young man just getting on campus. Again, you don't necessarily understand what all it takes and then what all goes into it. So that's my take on the Bama standard. We have Tom on the line. He's been waiting patiently. Tom, we appreciate you calling in. Welcome into the Miller's Edge. How are you on this Wednesday?
Christian, hey, Corey, how are y'all today?
Doing well.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. It's an interesting subject, and it's one that's been bannered around on this radio station a good bit, and it never gets old to think about, and I appreciate the fact y'all brought it up, but my take on the Bama factor is, Christian, you pointed out earlier, things have changed in the game of football. things have changed in the game of basketball. People have become, over the last several years, innovative about how they approach football or sports in general, but particularly football, how to pressure a defense from sideline to sideline and from the line of scrimmage all the way to the end zone. You know what I mean? You got to cover every inch.
That's right.
And it's changed in that regard. But the thing that bothers me the most about Alabama and what I think they've lost is the mental factor. The mental, you brought up the pre-snap penalty. That's mental. And jumping off sides, that's mental. And various other drop passes, that's mental. And we've had our share of that stuff the last 2 to 3 years. And it's been game-changing a lot of times. So the Bama factor that I think we're missing is the mental factor that you have to have to win. And both of y'all are winners at your trade at playing defense, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'd like to hear what y'all's take is. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. I'll let you hit on that. What are your thoughts? And I agree 100% with Tom.
Oh, Tom is right. Tom is he's spot on. I mean, the mental aspect. You go back to all the pre-snap penalties last year that cost him. I mean, Tennessee game, what was it, something like 17 penalties in that game? Something crazy like that?
Texas, they had I think they broke a record almost for penalties.
That's just unheard of, unthinkable when you think about a Nick Saban coach football team, right? One thing when even before you got there, when I was just covering sports, I covered sports, all across, especially the SEC. One thing you knew about Alabama, Nick Saban coach football team, this team would not beat themselves. They were going to be extremely disciplined. You knew that. That was known. So what I witnessed last year and even a couple of years ago was I'm like, this don't seem like a Nick Saban coach team. Now here is what I said last night, Christian, and folks that are listening. Problem is, the mental side. But when you have so much turnover in coaching, every year there's turnover on the Alabama football staff. A lot of it for good reason. A lot of it because coaches have made a name for themselves and go get, bigger, better opportunities or a head coaching job, and you can't blame them. But the truth is it hurts the team, and it hurts the chemistry, and it hurts the building of your program. Because you said it earlier, the players take on the persona of coaches. They're going to be like their coaches are. They're going to be an extension of the coach. But when you got so much turnover, how can you build that? How can your culture continue to expand and grow? Because you're hearing from a different voice somewhere every single year. When you got here, those coaches, Chris Rumps and, the Kirby Smarts and all these guys have been in place for years, and Coach Cochran and the fourth quarter, and they had this agenda in place that worked. And they called it the process, right?
Yep.
Well, that process has been torn apart because now you pull it from here, you pull it from there. I'm pulling NFL coaches that really used to be with guys who make more money than them, that they don't have to recruit, do these different things. They just want to coach ball. And so the standard gets lost. And so you got new faces and new places, and it's gone. So that's why I said there's going to be a combination, because the reason why Kevin Steele became a sexy hire for Nick Saban as a defense coordinator, because he's bringing the old school back. Somebody that understands the identity of the program. Somebody that gets the physicality defensively, what they expect, all of this stuff. Well, let me bring in a young guy, Tommy Reese, that give me an innovative offense, but yet his foundation is physicality. Big offensive lineman. We're going to pound you. We're going to bust in your mouth. We're going to run the football downhill, and we throw it when we need to. So Nick Saban understands that Kirby Smart took his blueprint and took it to Athens, Georgia, and said, "This is how you do it." And he got it done. And Alabama took a back seat. Now Nick Saban is trying to get that back. That's why I said there's going to be a combination, Christian, of both.
Yeah. Look, and I think both of those things are honestly, that's what it is. You know, you hit the nail on the head, and Tom did as well. And that's kind of what I was saying. Y'all both just expanded upon what I was saying, and that's exactly right. With the turnover, it's hard to retain that process because you're expecting new guys, new coaches in leadership roles to instill that process. But how are they instilling a process that they themselves are learning? It's hard to do. It's not their fault. It's just the truth. And then, like Tom mentioned, the mental aspect, that's what I was getting at in terms of, you know, those earlier guys in Coach Saban's tenure were hungry. They turned the program around. And then when guys that followed, like myself, we looked up to those guys because Coach Saban always made it a point. Those other guys who set that foundation, they're watching. They take pride in the bricks that they laid down to build that foundation, and they want it to be sustained. And so our goal was to live up to that standard. That's why you heard Will Anderson talk a lot about that, like, you know, sticking to the standard, you know, upholding the standard. And again, those guys definitely tried. I just don't know if we had enough guys. And again, I think what happens is when you have so much success, when guys are coming now, they just see all these rings and they just expect it to happen. And I'm telling you, the times that we lost was when we just had expectations. I'll give you an example. When we went to, San Francisco and played Clemson my senior year, when I was out with that torn hamstring that I suffered against Oklahoma, playing against Kyler Murray in the Orange Bowl. It was the same thing. We went into that game almost just expecting to win. We were up undefeated up to that point. We just dismantled Kyler Murray and the Oklahoma Sooners. Everybody thought, all right, we just got to just go out there to California, have fun. This music is very fitting, going to California. And I honestly feel like that team kind of just we lost sight of our goal to win that championship because we just had the expectations that we would just go in there and win, and that's not how things work. You got to put the work in. You know, Eric Thomas came and spoke to us, a great motivational speaker, one of the best in the world, and he said something that stuck with us. It was that everybody wants to be a beast until it comes time to do what beasts got to do. And it's true. Everybody wants to be the greatest until it's time to put in the work to be great. That rings true in anything.
Everybody wants the strength of an ox, but don't want to deal with the mess in the stable.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better.
Great show. Appreciate Michael CasaGrandeAL.com joining us. Thank you, Seth. Behind the glass, Christian Miller. I'm Corey Miller. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll continue this conversation. What is that Bama standard, and can they get that back? Big news sports coming up. And, of course, go Bama, roll tide, take care of business this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.